CBS. This is CBS 2 News at 6.
The Coast Guard in Dubuque. I'm Kerry Jehan, the Iowa Traveler. Stay tuned as we board the Coast Guard cutter Wyaconda and take her down the Mississippi.
CBS 2 Stock Ticker is brought to you by Bank Iowa.
Welcome back. In the aftermath of Hurricane Katrina, we saw dramatic rescues performed by the U.S. Coast Guard in New Orleans. You may not realize it, but the Coast Guard also operates out of Dubuque, Iowa. Tonight, Iowa Traveler Kerry Jehan offers us part one of his series, Iowa's Coast Guard.
Ship's whistle.
From early spring until winter ices them in, the U.S. Coast Guard cutter Wyaconda patrols the Mississippi out of their home base at Ice Harbor in Dubuque. CBS 2 photographer Gary Edwards and I were welcomed on board on a sunny early November day, traveling from Dubuque to Savannah, Illinois.
Dubuque Ice Harbor southbound.
Bosun's mate, Senior Chief Don Rogers, has been skipper of the buoy tender for the last 2.5 years. Texas native is in his 22nd year in the Coast Guard.
I was pleasantly surprised when I got up here. I'd never been in the heartland before. I'd always spent my time out on the coast with Alaska, Washington, California, Mississippi, Florida, Texas, New Jersey, running the coast. And when I got here, I was expecting flat cornfields, and then I come and see this. It's amazing.
The mission of the Wyaconda is maintaining aids to navigation on the Mississippi.
My mission is to keep the river marked for safe water for the towboats and the commerce that runs up and down the river. Entails a lot of setting buoys. We have over 1,600 buoys between Lock 13 and Minneapolis, which is my area's responsibility, and over 400 fixed aids to navigation, either lights or day markers.
For the cutter Wyaconda, this is one of the last trips for this season. This month of November, they'll be tying up once the river is iced in.
When the ice harbor freezes up, we'll keep bubblers around the boat so the ice isn't actually touching the hull, but we're pretty much locked in for the 3 months. And of course all the lock and dams, they close up for the winter as well, but we'll spend that time for a lot of training, sending folks to school, sending our people to other units that may be overburdened, whether it's due to Homeland Security or natural disaster.
It's hard work out here on the Mississippi, and in our next report, we'll talk to crew members who call themselves river rats.
And just part of having the Mississippi River in your blood and doing the work on it all the time.
I'm Kerry Jehan, the Iowa Traveler, aboard the U.S. Coast Guard cutter Wyaconda on the Mississippi.
And Kerry's next report, Iowa's Coast Guard, will air on Wednesday.
Fun. Serve their country on the Mississippi. I'm Kerry Jehan, the Iowa Traveler. Stay tuned. Coming up, part 2 of my series, Iowa's Coast Guard.
On Monday night, the Iowa Traveler introduced us to the skipper of a Coast Guard cutter based out of Dubuque. And tonight, Kerry Jehan introduces us to some of the crew members.
Welcome aboard the U.S. Coast Guard cutter Wyaconda, based out of Dubuque's Ice Harbor. The buoy tender has a crew of 14 who monitor and replace missing or damaged river markers. They keep the billion-dollar barge industry moving and keep the river lane open. Coast Guard duty on the Mississippi is a little bit different compared to the rest of their service, but the crewmen here on the Wyaconda say they like it. Currently, there are no Iowans on board, but Bosun's mate First Class Clarence DeBoard is from Galena, Illinois. Even his neighbors are surprised he's stationed in Iowa.
It's surprising you get that question a lot of places we stop. There's no Coast Guard, they think coast, but one of the main jobs of the Coast Guard, and one of our first ones, was doing aids to navigation, fixing all the lights and buoys on the river, and most people don't realize that. In fact, when I joined the Coast Guard, I didn't know there was Coast Guard in Dubuque, and it was 15 miles from home.
The ship's cook is Dixon McCardo from San Juan, Puerto Rico. He loves Dubuque, winter and all.
I wouldn't go back to the sea. I like it here. Yeah, I've been, at sea most of my time. This is my first time in a river, and it's more peaceful, you know. It's easier to cook. I make a menu, and people tell me their needs and what they want, and I try to keep their morale as high as I can.
Senior Chief Rogers says he likes the duty on the Mississippi, and he says his crewmen work hard out here.
Constant threat of working near the side when you're working with buoys, and the threat of going overboard.
Got to know what you're doing. We do have a lot of new guys on board. It is fairly dangerous because you see there's buoys all over. There's chain, sinker, buoys overhead with the crane.
They're the backbone. They get everything done. In the summer, when we have a lot of daylight, they'll work 16-hour days.
It's good for them to know that the Coast Guard is here so they can feel proud of Dubuque, you know. I mean, they're very proud of many different things about Dubuque, but that's one more thing they can feel proud about, you know, that the military is here, even though it's small.
And since 9/11, they're ever watchful. More on that in our upcoming final report. I'm Kerry J. Hahn, the Iowa Traveler, on the U.S. Coast Guard cutter Wyaconda on the Mississippi. The Wyaconda has been patrolling the Mississippi now for 40 years, since 1965. I'm Kerry J. Hahn, the Iowa Traveler. Stay tuned as we conclude my series, Iowa's Coast Guard.
CBS 2's Iowa Traveler is powered by Ford Explorer.
Welcome back. The Wyaconda River feeds in the Mississippi south of Keokuk. It's also the name of a class of Coast Guard cutter the Iowa Traveler has told us about all week. Tonight, Kerry J. Hahn concludes his series, Iowa's Coast Guard.
We lovingly refer to ourselves as river rats. And as a matter of fact, on some of our rewards and recognition t-shirts that we have river rats on the breast, and then the name of the cutter on the back.
That's how the skipper and crew of the Coast Guard cutter Wyaconda, based out of Dubuque's Ice Harbor, describe themselves. It can be a dirty and dangerous job in all kinds of elements, as they keep the Mississippi waterway marked for barge traffic, retrieving and replacing wayward buoys and markers. Annually, 24.5 million tons of cargo pass through the Quad Cities area on the Mississippi, on towboats like the Phyllis out of Bettendorf, which we rode on in the year 2000, and we passed her on this trip from Dubuque to Savannah, Illinois. The Wyaconda has been patrolling the Mississippi now for 40 years, since 1965. These crewmen feel they're doing an important job out here on the Mississippi. And since 9/11, the awareness factor is higher. They once again carry riot weapons on board.
The most basic change is our domain awareness and being aware of what's up and down the river and knowing what's normal and what's out of the ordinary.
And Senior Chief Don Rogers knows of what he speaks, serving on the New Jersey coast after 9/11.
Coming here after 2 years on a patrol boat after 9/11 is like dying and going to heaven. It really is.
Just 10 weeks ago, bosun's mate, First Class Clarence DeBoard, saw another kind of action, sent to New Orleans to help Katrina victims.
We got there the morning after the storm left, and we just started pulling people out. We have these little John boats, had to deal with a lot of things, but it was real rewarding.
The crew members we talked to like duty on the Mississippi, and Senior Chief Rogers and ship's cook Dixon McCarto hope to retire here.
I'll swallow the anchor here in October of 2007, and it's a good place.
I love the Coast Guard, and I would like young people from Dubuque to get interested in joining the Coast Guard in the future, you know.
The river rats of the Coast Guard cutter Wyaconda, based out of Dubuque. They like life on the Mississippi. Thanks, guys, for the ride. I'm Kerry J. Hahn, the Iowa Traveler.